There's been a major update to the merger between two carriers within the aviation industry, and in today's video I take a look at the latest developments and what it means for the pair moving forward. Stay tuned for that.
BB851, turn right heading 180. 14 Papa, turn right 245, report localizer established 27.
Korean Air is looking to tie up a purchase with Asiana Airlines in the future. This is a move from Korean Air that would make it the 7th biggest carrier in the world, and therefore an absolute powerhouse not just in the worldwide global industry, but also that of the Asian sector, with a commanding and firm grip on operations throughout. However, this mega deal isn't completely smooth sailing, with still niggles occurring, and that is what has taken its toll in recent weeks since the deal was first originally announced, and this is according to the Korea Times. The biggest change overall is that of the time the acquisition and then full merger between carriers will take place. The original goal from Korean Air was to acquire the airline by year's end, and then shortly after fully merge with Asiana, or merge Asiana, into their operations. However, no exact specific date, if you will, was given on this front originally. It was simply stated to us that the carrier would be wrapping up the integration part as soon as possible after the acquisition. Now, though, Korean Air has noted they will acquire Asiana by 2022, so next year, and see a completion of the merging and integrations by the end of 2024. This is a roughly 2-year delay on what they were originally expecting, and you might ask why. Well, there's actually a lot of reasons, and a lot of it has to do with certain concerns and also approvals that, while on the surface may seem quick and also easy, don't necessarily come without problems of their own spurring on from these existing things that Korean Air need to complete. On top of the Korean Air and Asiana Airlines details, there are also fine details with other carriers that are included in this deal and will ultimately merge together. As for what their branding becomes remains to be seen, but it includes the likes of Air Seoul, Jin Air and Air Busan, hopefully I've pronounced that correctly. Tying up these three acquisitions into one single deal as well is also proving to be trickier than first imagined, with exact precise details still yet to be arranged, and just how it will actually impact overall market share in the low-cost units, and also demand, obviously passenger choices, as well. As naturally, a lot of these carriers were competing with each other prior to this deal, so by them merging together, it completely changes the landscape of travel within Asia, and especially for these three units that would essentially go from competing with each other on a long-term basis to very quickly becoming allies and joining forces. That is something that Korean Air needs to consider, especially when getting all specific fine details in place, because it's important to remember that it doesn't just center around an airline's operations in a sense of route network or the finances. We're also talking about employees that obviously are employed at these low-cost units, even that of Asiana. That is something that's naturally going to be worked out. While it's highly unlikely that Korean Air will take on every single Asiana plane, they will likely retire off some of them. That will naturally, though, result in a loss of staff. Once again, something that is going to cause shockwaves throughout the industry, especially if it is at a high amount. We'll have to wait and see, though, on the specifics of actually what aircraft are moving across and just how much of the business overall at Asiana Airlines that Korean Air will be taking on officially, but the first port of call is to actually get this all signed up. Ultimately, though, the main sole cause for this delay relates directly back to Korean Air, who are struggling to get the regulatory approval that is required to push the deal through. The combined airline of the future, if you will, would need a reported 4 countries to approve it. That's what Korean Air is seeking. This, though, excludes South Korea. So far, the airline has only received approval from one of the required 4 countries, meaning it still has 3 to go, and I would naturally assume that it's taking a little bit longer than they first expected. In the Korean Times, an industry officer commented on the merger saying, "Currently most of the routes Korean Air and Asiana operate in the same destination are in close proximity with some departures, just 10 minutes apart. Once the merger occurs, the time slots will likely be changed further apart to better maximize profitability and provide customers with more options. With this tying into the Open Skies Treaty and Star Alliance network, it gives us our first glimpse of how a Korean Air and Asiana merger would work in a sense of flight operations, at the very least, into popular airports, especially in the United States, as that's where the focus was centered. If you have any thoughts on this huge aviation merger, feel free to drop them in the comments section below. But like always, thank you very much for tuning into this video, and I will see you all tomorrow. Take care and please be safe.